Welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast, where we focus on the journey, not the destination. Brought to you by the Baseball Blue Book app. Are you in the book? And now, your host, Eric Wobanaw. All right, welcome back to the Baseball Blue Book Podcast. This is Eric Wobanaw, the president of the Baseball Blue Book. Excited to have Coach Doc Neiman on with Penn West Clarion. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Eric. How are you doing?
Great. Great to have you on. Had your dad on a few weeks ago, and we were just kind of getting to know each other, talk about the old school versus new school. I love talking that, and we've got a perfect opportunity to compare, contrast a father-son, but I really want to focus on your program, your journey, what you've done specifically. And the listeners of the show love the opportunity to kind of get to know the coaches in a different way, a little bit different than you having a phone call with a player, so they kind of see just kind of the transparency and what makes you a coach, and what kind of your mission and mission statement, and what makes this important to you. So appreciate you being on the Baseball Blue Book Podcast. Let's go ahead and just do a quick introduction and the program that you're at, and then we'll get into the questions and probably start at the beginning.
Sure. Again, thanks, Eric, for having me. My name is Doc Neiman. I'm the head baseball coach here at Penn West Clarion. Penn West is located in Clarion, Pennsylvania, about an hour and 20 minutes north of Pittsburgh. This will be my 5th year here at Clarion, 4th as head coach. I spent my first year here as an assistant to Anthony Williams, and then I took over after he departed for Frostburg State. So I'll be entering my 4th year now as head coach here. This will be my 10th year overall in college baseball as an assistant or a head coach.
That's awesome. That's great. So let's go ahead and let's start from the beginning. When did you kind of know that baseball was going to be your career?
I still don't know if it's going to be my career. Obviously, growing up and playing for Dad and being around my family's genes and everything has been awesome. So baseball has always been a big part of our life, in our blood. My dad, my grandfather, my brother is also in baseball. So I always knew it was going to be a part of it. Once I graduated and had a chance a bit, I kind of got away from it. I didn't know if it was really the route I wanted to go. Started working some other jobs, some retail, worked at a casino for a little bit. And it was that time away that really made me miss the game and being involved in it more. So came back, obviously, and worked for Dad for my first 4 years. So I spent 4 years at the sales. During that time, I was still working. I was working full-time at a juvenile detention facility, overnights, and then would go to the office or go coach baseball in the mornings and all day, and then back to work at night. So it still was a process. It was still just something I loved doing, and that's why I did it. And about that time, year 4, I kind of decided, if I really wanted to do this more, I had to probably start getting away from Dad a little bit and making my own footprints. And a friend of mine had gotten a head job down in South Carolina, Mark Crocco at Erskine College.
Okay.
Was looking for a volunteer at the time, and I had gone down there to work with catchers. So I spent 1 year down there at Erskine College, like I said. And then that summer kind of really blew up for me. I really hit the recruiting trail hard when I was back up here in Pennsylvania, and got the opportunity to meet Anthony Williams, like I said, who's now the head coach. And we had a bond, and I made a connection and gave me the opportunity to come out here. So I came out here for 1 year as the recruiting coordinator and worked with catchers and helped him out. And like I said, he moved on to Frostburg, and I got blessed with getting the opportunity to take over this ball club. And here I am still today, and I love it out here, and it's a great opportunity.
That's awesome. Let's take a step back before the coaching and your actual ball playing journey. Talk about the high school, kind of the recruiting process, what you did, and we'll get into some of the ups and downs from that perspective. So really, when from a high school perspective, what were you thinking? You had a little different perspective, obviously, with the dad that was in coaching. Through this, what we're looking for is some advice, right? Some of the things that you already knew that maybe other people didn't know, and then also what the changes that we've seen just in the last dozen years or even less, some significant changes that have happened in the recruiting process. So give us kind of a backstory of that.
Sure. I mean, when I grew up, I graduated high school in '06, and that was really kind of when travel ball started emerging a little bit. It really wasn't huge back then.
Yeah.
There wasn't PBR. It wasn't all this. It was USSSA and small mints. And I played travel ball for a local team from the Lehigh Valley. And that was really it. I mean, we really didn't get big into the recruiting. As I got older in my senior year, we played a little bit more bigger events, I guess, if you wanted to call them at the time. They were still pretty local. But we went down south to the Carolinas and all that, and Virginia, but nothing like it is today. I think Baseball Factory was the big recruiting tool back then with the VHS tapes, which I still have. But that was kind of it. That was how you presented yourself in front of these college coaches, going to prospect camps, which are important now as they were back then, because it gets you on campus, it gets you in front of those actual coaches. So my process was a little bit different. I mean, I always knew I had a spot to go, and play for dad at the sales. Initially, I would probably say I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go bigger or someplace different in a way. I really didn't have a whole lot. I visited a couple schools, St. John's up in New York and VMI down in Virginia. But, at the end of the day, you have to go to the places that you had an opportunity to grow both on the field and off the field in the classroom.
Yep.
And the sales gave me the best opportunity to do that. I was not a strong student, so I knew I was going to get the best help at the sales with smaller classes and people who could really help me out from that standpoint. So, it was a little bit different just because I knew I had that fallback spot.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it was great to always know that I could go play for dad and stay close to home and get a good education and play college baseball.
Well, even though your situation was a little bit unique, obviously having the dad in the coaching realms and the fallback plan, you still were looking at things that were important to you that you needed individually, right? He could have been at a different program that just didn't fit your needs. So it was fortunate that it fit what you were looking at. Talk about that and the importance of finding the fit versus kind of pursuing the dream. I think there's two different ways of looking at it. There's a dream. I always wanted to play at X school, but based on my self-evaluation, what I really needed, there's other programs that might make more sense. Talk about the value of that.
Yeah, I think it's huge, especially right now with the way recruiting is and the transfer portal and junior colleges getting backed up. Most of these kids want to go and play right away.
Right.
And I think that's something that everyone wants. Everyone wants to go play right away, and that's awesome. But you also got to find the right fit for it, because like we talked about, there's places that you can go, that are going to have a large amount of roster spots or a smaller roster number. What's the development like? What are facilities like? Kids are so big into facilities and gear nowadays. But that's the other side of it, right? The main side is finding, and my dad always talks about this, is one, don't evaluate by division, right? There's Division 3 schools, Division 2 schools, Division 1 schools that can all compete against everyone if you put them in the same conference.
Right.
Our conference is very strong at a Division 2 level here in the PSAC. Dad's conference in Division 3 is very, very strong. So you never evaluate by division like he always preaches. You evaluate by the education you're going to get. What's going to happen after college, because 95% of the kids that come to our schools are going on to bigger and better things in the real world. So you got to get a good education. You have to enjoy where you're at, the lifestyle, the size of the school, the surrounding areas. Every school is close by. They're still going to be different. So I think those are things that kids really need to dive into and take a good hard look at is, if baseball doesn't work out, am I okay going to school there? Am I okay getting my education there? Am I going to get a good education there? And this has come from someone who was not a good student by any means. I was at the bottom of the school. But you got to find those things. I think that's one thing, and just building these relationships with these kids. Like I said, the transfer portal has made it very unique. Where some schools, I'm sure, don't even look at high school kids. They strictly stick in the
Right.
portal, and try to find kids with experience. So you got to find a home that, a coach really wants you and you feel comfortable there with, where you can develop and get those educations, and continue to progress throughout your college career.
Do you feel as a coach, and I guess the point I'm trying to make is you have a philosophy and a mission kind of how to build your program, and then all of a sudden these outside forces continue to change and modify the business of baseball, right? How do you stay true to your mission and what you want to build, and keeping yourself from kind of getting pulled in or sucked into the kind of the stresses or the demands of what's happened in the industry of baseball?
Yeah, it's super tough. And I want to say a little bit of it does change at times. I think the philosophy does have to change time to time. Me personally, I like the high school kid. It gives a chance to really dive into, getting to know them, getting to know their family, where they're from, their past, and then watching them develop throughout their 4 years here with us. Where sometimes you get these, transfers or other kids who have been around, and a little bit older, and they might not necessarily fit your mold like they fully would, and it's tough to change that when they're only here for a year or two. But there's times where you have to dive in and get one of those kids to fit a hole. We brought a couple transfers in this year, and that's probably the most I've ever brought in my 5 years being here. But they fit our needs. So I think when we're looking at it from a recruiting standpoint, you have to find those needs, but still make sure if it's a high school kid or a junior college or a transfer or whatever, that they still meet our core values of what we're told here, or build any program to help us continue to go that route. Because as we all know, there's so many kids out there looking for homes. We got to make sure we're getting the right character kid for our program.
Yeah. No, you bring up a really good point. Everybody has needs, and it's how far do you stray away from the core values and the culture that you have, right? To maybe bring that person in to actual fit the immediate needs. That's such a balancing act on that perspective, because it could certainly have. It could have a big impact, positive or negative, on your program, just to fill those needs. So it's good that you kind of bring up that side of it. As you made it through, you said you played professional ball. You played for your dad. What happened right there before kind of you went on your own and out of baseball? Just to give us kind of a backstory of your journey.
Sure. I ended up graduating college in 2011. That was my 5th year. I got hurt my senior year, so I got an extra year. Knew I really wanted to try the pro ball route. Obviously there's 1,000 kids out there who are trying the same route as I am, but I knew I wanted to give it a shot. I got lucky enough and signed the following spring with the Washington Wild Things down in the Frontier League. So not too far from where I'm currently at. But unfortunately I wasn't there very long, which is perfectly fine. I had an opportunity to sign and be a part of it, and say I did it, which was awesome. And I wish more kids had that opportunity. And off right now because of the way MLB cut some of the programs, and Frontier League or the independent leagues are changing up. So it was awesome. I wouldn't change it for the world. But from that time out, I was obviously frustrated. I was actually working for the Phillies organization throughout that time as well. I worked for the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs from 2010 to about 2014 as a bullpen catcher. So at least I knew I was still going back to kind of work with them and kind of keep my feet, in the game. But, I knew that, baseball's tough to make a career out of and a living. So I really had to kind of change my path. And like I said, I had been working retail for a while, and had some other opportunities to work and just kind of went that route. And, at the time it seemed right. I was making money and, living kind of my life out the way I was still around the game. I still liked it. I'd go to dad's games and watch. But I also knew I didn't want to coach right away because I didn't want to coach kids I played with. That's a tough connection sometimes.
Right. Yeah, you hear that a lot. A lot of these guys that I've interviewed coming in at 25, even younger. I think I interviewed one person that was 23, his first head coach job, and he was coaching basically the same players that he was playing with. It does take a unique perspective to do that. That was interesting. I mean, looking at your backstory and kind of the legends of baseball in your family, did you think that had something to do with kind of you wanting to pursue something outside of baseball you said you wanted to forge your own path, kind of figure out what you wanted to do. What really made you go, I want to be in this game versus just, hey, I like to be around it? Because that's a big change, right? I'm in the game, but I'm not coaching, right? I love baseball, and I found a different avenue. What made coaching so appealing to say, hey, I'm going to dedicate my life, because that's what you're doing, right? It's a big commitment to be a coach. What made you make that real commitment to say, hey, this is it?
I think, like I said, just not being in it for a little bit made you kind of open up your eyes and kind of see what you're missing. I mean, obviously, I was always still having conversations with Dad about his team, and I was watching the games. I'm a Phillies fan, so watching all those games, had my feet in travel ball, coaching some of those kids, and I just like the instruction. That's what we were always built on when we were growing up is how to play the game the right way. That's what Dad instilled in us and my grandfather. And, that's something that I took when I was with these travel ball kids, 13, 14, 15 years old, is having them play the game the right way. So, you kind of get your feet wet with that. And it's like, this is pretty fun. And, I miss being around. I miss traveling. I miss going to ball games and, doing all this stuff. And that's just kind of what, triggered me to get back into it. And obviously, again, having Dad to fall back on and knowing that I could go help out, and I'd still go to his practice even when I wasn't coaching with him. I'd go and, hit fungos or watch or talk to the guys. Again, a lot of them I played with. But it was that love for the game that I missed. It was the excitement of going to game days. And I mean, still now I'll be 35 next month and I still get jitters on game days. I still get excited. And I think that's something that, back then when I'm looking back at it, I missed, and I knew that I needed that back in my life. And that's kind of what led to it.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, so you're in coaching. You've got some great mentors around you. You've also talked about a lot of friends and the networking that you've had in this. And one of the things that I really enjoy with here is just the names that you were mentioning and the people that I've actually interviewed and I always think of it as the coaching, right? The coaching tree. There's a lot of coaching trees that I think are being created right now, at least in the Northeast, and what's going on in some of these divisions and conferences that you guys are participating in. What's your philosophy? What makes you guys unique? What have you taken from different people, from your dad, from other people that have helped you kind of define what Clarion is and what you think is a little bit unique to what you bring to the game?
Well, yeah, I mean, first off, the coaching tree, like you mentioned, is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so cool to see friends and people that I've interacted with or talked to, and they're getting jobs here and jobs there, and you're seeing them out on the recruiting trail, and it's a hello, and then the next thing you know, you're texting and you're calling each other for advice, and it's just so cool. And I think, if I can add real quick about recruiting, like, always be respectful to the coaches you're talking to, because you never know where they're going to end up. You might not be a good fit at Clarion, but maybe down the road I'm at Penn State, I don't know, and it's a better fit there, or vice versa. So you never know where these coaches are going to end up. So from a recruiting standpoint, always be respectful to the coaches who you're talking to.
That's a great point. And I would add that you guys all know each other as well. So if you don't like Neiman, exactly. If you don't like Neiman, don't be a jerk, because he probably knows every other coach you're going to be talking to in the next couple months.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, just again going off that, there's times where it's like, hey, what do you think about this kid? Are you on him too? And they're like, and friends like, yeah, absolutely, we really like him. And it's like, okay, and then your fun battles back and forth with
Right.
your buddies. But
Yeah.
I guess one of our big philosophies here is just something that I've taken from Dad, and that's play the game the right way.
Yeah.
Hustle on and off the field. Thing that the old school part of it, right?
Right.
I think nowadays there's the old school coaches. There's we'll call them the hybrids, the old school with a little bit of new school, and then you have the total new school. I would say I'm probably more of the hybrid. I'm not a big data guy, but over the last couple of years, I really have dove into it more. I guess just getting some data numbers from a hitting standpoint and looking at spray charts that are generated for us. So kind of diving into it more lately, but I think the big thing that, I try to preach to these kids is the development side of things and learning the game. And we come to practice, our guys work super hard. I'm not a long practice guy. I want to get in, I want to get out, and I want to complete our work, whether it's a straight BP day, whether it's a defensive day. It does get repetitive, but I think that's what baseball is. Baseball is a game of repetition, and kids need to realize, we might do PFPs 3 times a week, but there's a reason we're doing it because it's repetition. And when it happens in the game, we better not mess it up, or form throwing. There's a reason we do it because it's repetition and it gets us into a good spot. So the development side of things is something that our guys with our recruits, you're going to come in, you're going to work hard, you're going to get better, as far as those kind of things. So I think that's one of the big cores I have is just that development, pushing that, and playing the game the right way.
That's great. And really, when you're doing that, it's development. Are you looking at different types of kids when you're really focused on the development side?
I would say we're just looking for athletes, ball players. I think that's the big thing is these kids are being recruited to come play college baseball, whether it's here, someplace else. They're getting recruited to go to a school to play college baseball. So those coaches know they can play. Most of the time those coaches know these kids can play. So when they get there, we might expect some more from them because we don't have time to dive into the small, fundamentals, I guess would be the good word.
Right.
But we have to progress with what they already have. It's super tough to kids swing at 18, 19, 20 years old because they've probably been doing it for most. So we have to find a couple cues, right, or a couple ways to work with what he's got, right, to make it better. I think I don't like cookie cuttering swings or pitchers. I want to keep it basic,
right.
Keep it what works for them. We might try to tweak it a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, that's who they are. We got to take what they are and just build off of that.
I like that. That's one thing I really like about baseball. It's you think of the superstars, the Hall of Famers, and I can't imagine. I don't think there's one swing that's alike, right? They're all very unique, but it worked for them. And I think what you just said is really awesome. It's kind of figuring out what they've got and how can I make that a little bit better. It's not turning them into something that they're not. It's taking what they've got and really finding a way of expanding that or accelerating the development side. How do you balance? One of my favorite topics is really the balance of the student and the athlete. And what happens inside the lines and what happens outside the lines. How do you balance that? What's important to you? What do you talk to the kids about? And how do you keep them focused on the winning, but also the big picture of really why they're there as a student athlete?
Yeah, like I said, this is coming from a guy who was not a good student by any means. But first and foremost, they're student athletes. That's why they're coming to school. They have to get a good education so they can go on. We do check their grades pretty much every week. We do study hall with certain kids, our freshmen primarily, especially with the first semester, just so they can get used to, getting in the school and the time management part of life really here. But one thing we always preach is, there's more to this game than baseball. There's more to life than baseball. And be a good person. That's going to get you a lot further in life than it is, So, but we track it. I do preach grades pretty hard with our guys. And one reason we do that is because it affects how we recruit too. If kids are slacking or struggling and not putting their time and effort in,
Right.
as coaches, we have to look maybe to replace that person. And that's not being because they can't help us, but it's because, they're a factor in the classroom isn't working out for us. So, I think it's super important. We try our best to keep these guys and give them good resources to use with tutors, and we have faculty members that are on staff with us that help us out. But first and foremost, they got to get a good education. And that's something that we preach every single day. Like I said, they come in probably about once a week. We look over their grades. We just kind of talk. It also gets our mind off of baseball a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. So, we can, hey, what was for lunch today? How's mom and dad doing? We're getting ready for exit meetings here in the next couple. And, we get to catch up and see how their Thanksgiving was.
Right.
So it's more of a personal thing. For me, I can dive into some of these kids. And if they are struggling, I can dive into why they're struggling. I can maybe try to look into it. And is it something that's small that we can help fix? Or it's something they got to figure out for themselves and start to grow up a little bit with. So it is tough to sit. I feel like we do a really good job here with it. And I'm sure there's a lot of coaches out there who deal with it and have different philosophies and strategies with it. Like, I know Dad doesn't do study halls at all anymore, and that's perfectly fine and that works for them. But it's something that does work for us, and I know paid us keep an eye.
Well, it's tough. I love talking to the coaches. We also have a couple podcasts that we do with kids. There is the demands of a student athlete are significant, and I don't know. And this is the question to you. I don't know if kids are being prepared enough to make that jump from high school to college, because what's interesting. This is my spin, and you tell me if I'm way off or if I'm right there. When high school isn't necessarily the focused from the baseball side, and it's travel teams, it's elite teams, it's all of these other club teams, there's no academics to balance baseball in that realm. And so when you go to college, all of a sudden it's a balance between baseball and academics, right? Do you see that being a challenge? Do you think that they're doing a good enough job? Because when high school baseball was the big thing, well, they had to go do academics. You had to, if you didn't have a passing grade, you couldn't play on the high school team. Well, if you're on a travel team, you may not have a passing grade, but you're still playing on a travel team because it has nothing to do with your grades. Now, all of a sudden, you go to college, and it's back to grades matter if you want to play baseball. Do you see that and are they being prepared well enough? And what's some advice that you might want to give some kids?
Yeah, I think some programs are preparing them, and we've seen some where kids do struggle. Again, the biggest thing to me is time management, right? They have to they have to be ready to adjust up longer and kind of do some stuff on their own a little bit when it comes to college. And what's unique, especially here, is we have a lot of online classes.
Okay.
So these kids have an opportunity some they have to log in and they have a professor speaking over Zoom or wherever. Some it's all the work. So they have to take that into consideration where, okay, I got to look ahead and see what I have to do next week. And okay, when is practice this week? When can I get this work done? So it doesn't fall on them. And I think that's probably the biggest thing from high school that doesn't prepare them, is because high school you're in class every single day, and you have assignments that are due maybe next week, but it's not like here's your syllabus for the year. Hand this stuff in when the dates are on the paper due. So it gives them some responsibility, some accountability that they have to lock into. And I think that's the biggest thing that we see with our freshmen who, come from a place maybe that don't have a whole lot. And honestly, the big thing, COVID's been a big follower for some of these kids in high school. They didn't, they finished school during a COVID year and didn't have to do anything. And then they go back and we're still dealing with it. So it's definitely put a twist on the education side of things for sure. But I would say that's the biggest thing that we see is just the accountability and the time management that really needs to happen for these kids.
Yeah, no, it is a big change, isn't it? I mean, you go from high school. It was a long time for me ago, but the difference, high school there's a lot of accountability that was kind of encapsulated. And now, like you said, the colleges, there's a lot less of that. It's really your responsibility to get that done. Nobody's watching over you, and I would imagine that's something that as a coaching staff is important to you as well, right? You're recruiting players to come to play, and they've got to make sure that they're on the field and not having to sit or because of academics. So that's a very important part of it.
100%. Like I said, it affects how we recruit and how these kids can play and eligibility wise. So they have to realize the importance of it. I mean, we are here to help the staff, the support staff we have. We are here to help. We tell those guys that, but we're not going to sit there and hold their hands. Right. They have to, some of these kids are first time away from home, which is fine, but they have to hold their end up too at the same time to help us out so we can help them.
Yep. No, it's some big boy decisions. That's for sure, and they got to grow up pretty quick. And I always laugh because we're talking like we did everything right when we were younger.
Exactly, I definitely did not. I'll say that much. I wish there's a lot of stuff that I've learned, especially being in the college game the last 10 years that I wish I knew when I was in high school, from both on the field and off the field. It's super important. I think that's what's also unique about baseball is we can learn so much every single day and continue to grow. There's always something new we're learning. Again, a skill set on the field or something off the field that we can continue to grow with, which is awesome.
That's great. All right, couple things as we kind of wrap up here. First of all, kind of advice. There's tons of advice that coaches have for players that are kind of making that the adjustment or that transition or even that decision that they want to play at the next level. What is one piece of advice, and it can be a couple pieces, that is really that you feel is one of the most important things that these kids need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I think, we hit on it earlier, is those fits, right? Finding the right fit from an academic standpoint to an athletic standpoint. There's more that goes into it with financially and the area, the social fits. All those things are super important for these guys. Like I said, look at roster sizes. We all have our dream schools, and that's great. I still have a dream school I wish I can go back and play, right? So
good point.
These kids need to look at, be realistic with where you're at, be personal with coaches. I think that's a big thing. We get a lot of emails every single day and messages, social media, on Twitters and Instagrams with kids trying to get recruited, and that's great. But sometimes they're not personal. They're generic emails, and I think that's a turnoff for some people. So these kids need to find those fits, feel comfortable, get to know the coach. I love having conversations with kids. I like when kids text me, in the evening and just, have a fun conversation. Hey, coach, are you watching the game? Who do you like tonight? That stuff's fun to me. I think that's cool because I'm getting to know these kids and they're personal. And as much as we are recruiting the kids also have to recruit us. I think that's a big thing. They have to be bought in to, I really like this coach. I really like this school. He really likes me, but I can't just sit there and not answer him for a couple weeks. Like, I got to be engaged with him as much as he is with me. So I think that's a big thing, and that goes back to being personal with the coach you're talking to.
That's good. That's really good. And so you've kind of alluded to some of the benefits and the things in your of your program. Obviously, your philosophy and how you kind of run things. Why should somebody take a look at Penn West at Clarion? What makes it maybe a good fit or something that they haven't heard of it, or they have and they really haven't even thought about that as a potential opportunity? What are some reasons why they should?
Yeah, I think it's a great spot. Like I said, year 5 here now, and small town living. We're obviously a little bit in the rural wooded area, so if you like those kind of things, that's a good spot for you. But I think one of our big selling point is the PSAC, the PSAC conference. It's, in my mind, one of the top Division II conferences, in the country. I mean, we send a team pretty much every single year to the College World Series. Westchester last year made an awesome run, finished, I think, 4th, in the nation, Final Four team. Millersville's been there, Westchester's won it, Seton Hill, Mercier's, all these
Yeah.
programs, are super talented. So they're so good on the field and what they do, and I think that's a huge selling point. Is if we find those right caliber kids, it's like, hey, you have an opportunity to come here and play in a very good, talented, Division II conference. And there's kids get drafted left and right out of this school. I mean, Chaz McCormick,
Yeah.
who just won a World Series with the Astros, played at Millersville.
Yep.
And Lou Trevino is with the Yankees from Slippery Rock. So there's so much history in this conference.
Right.
So, for kids who are looking to play top level, I think this is a great opportunity. It's a program that's been off the map in previous years, and it's something that we're trying to get back on the map in the right direction. I think that's something that philosophy, building this team, using those selling points is really going to help us put back on the map. We've won some really big games the last couple of years against some big time opponents in the PSAC. So people know who we are now. It's just continuing to build those steps, to be more consistent from our end.
I think that's really great. We're on a podcast, a live stream every Tuesday. We talk to parents and players just about different things from a recruiting perspective and what they need to look at. And one of the questions was about, and it's perfect what your dad said, and you have the same philosophy. Don't look at it from a conference or a level, right? That's not how you approach this, because there is really good quality baseball at any level. And so when you find your fit, always back to fit, it's all the peripherals around the program. Doesn't mean the program isn't important, but it's all, you have to look at the big picture of what makes sense for you. And you know what? You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be, like you said, I love what you said. I've got my dream school that I want to play at, and I do too. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it's dream versus reality, and setting yourself up for success long term. One of the things I do love hearing coaches talk, and this is the last thing I want to ask you is, when do you and why do you? What constitutes success for you and your program over the period of X number of years? How do you look back and go, I had a successful 5 years or 10 years, or as your dad, 33 years? What constitutes success in your mind?
Well, Dad's something special. I mean, Dad's been going for, I think 34 now. This year is his, and he's done an awesome job building that program. And like I said, I can actually bless the coach and play for one of the best college coaches. But I think just looking back, I think, it's really building the relationships. Like I said, we are trying to build this back up here from a standpoint. Wins sometimes aren't always in our favor. Yeah. But I think it's the relationships we build with our student athletes, to show that we care, that we are there for them on and off the field, that we are going to give it our all. And do this to help them out, whether it's on the field, in the classroom, writing reference letters, for grad school or jobs. All that stuff is super important to me.
That's great.
The wins will come. The kids, once they start buying in and undo, and like I said, it goes back to that development. They're here for a reason. So we want them just to go play. We'll fine tune them. But it's the relationships we build with them. I want guys to come in the office and hang out and watch TV or talk about whatever. That means more to me. I heard one time, weddings over wins. I think that's a cool way to look at it. And it's just like, those are the relationships those guys had with you that we have with them, that, again, there's more to life than baseball. Yeah. That these guys figured it out and are doing something with their lives. So to me, the big thing is the relationships. Those matter more to me than the wins. And that's super important.
That's awesome. Yeah. The hidden message here for those that are listening is coaches are looking for people that they can be friends with later in life.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. These guys are not much younger than me, because I'll be 35. So, I played baseball not too long ago. Right. So I'm here for them. I want to be there for them. I'm not their friend, right? But I will have their backs, and I will be a good, hopefully, mentor for them. And then when they go on, and they graduate, Yeah, and I know Dad talks about this a lot, but when they go on further, I want to follow them. I want to know what they're doing.
Yep.
I want to get them back on campus for alumni days, and of fundraising here for our alumni. So it's great seeing the support those guys throw back into the program. So those things are just awesome to see,
Yeah.
and to see where kids are going and what they're doing, as far as jobs or whatever. So it's really cool to
That's
see.
great. That's great. Coach, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for spending the last hour with me. And we're looking forward to kind of following your program. Real quick, how does it look for this coming year?
Yeah, we just finished up. I'm really excited about this program. We have a very experienced team, which is cool because we're still pretty young. We're all about sophomores and
Okay.
juniors. So our lineup is experienced, but I'm really excited for it. I can't wait for these guys to get back here in a couple weeks, days, and dive in. And I think we open up like February 17th, against Westchester actually.
There you
So,
go.
I'm just really looking forward to it. It's going to be a great year. These guys work extremely hard, and I can't wait to get back to work.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you again. I appreciate it. Good luck with everything, Coach.
Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.